so factoring expressions, if you guys look up at the very top where it talks about factoring expressions, it's a factoring expressions is separating an expression back into a product called factoring. So for your homework quiz today and for the lesson that we just finished putting our answers in simplest form. Correct, guys? Yeah. You are now going to take your answer that you put in simplest form and you are going to convert it to an answer that is in factored form. And that looks like what you have before you do the distributive property. Does that make sense? So it's like we're reverting back to before we distribute the number through. There are 3 steps that tell you how to do that. Step 1 says to find the greatest common factor of each term. Okay, you need to find, whatever problem you're doing, the largest number that goes into both numbers that you see. So if we look at number 1, I have 7x plus 7. What is the greatest common factor that goes into 7 and 7? 7, right? So our greatest common factor is 7. So our GCF is 7. Then step 2 says to divide each term by the GCF. So I'm going to divide 7x by 7. I'm going to divide 7 by 7. I am dividing each term by the greatest common factor, which in this case is 7. And let's actually do that. 7x divided by 7 is what? 1 what? X. Now, I'm not going to put the 1. If you put the 1, you're not wrong. But I will never write that 1 there, so I'm going to write just an x. And then what's 7 divided by 7? 1. What operation should be between the x and the 1? You got to keep that operation sign, so keep it an addition sign. So when we divide the greatest common factor out of both terms, you are going to leave the remaining factors, x plus 1 are the remaining factors, inside parentheses. And then you are going to put the greatest common factor on the outside of the parentheses in front. So your answer is 7 parentheses x plus 1. Then you can go into step 3, check your work by distributing. So we take the 7 multiplied by the x, what do we get? 7. When we take the 7 multiplied by the 1, what do we get? 7. So we get 7x plus 1 when we distribute. That tells us we did it correct. And that's our answer. That's all it is. Campbell.
What if it's like a negative 7x?
You can take the negative with you. Does that make sense?
Wouldn't the symbol change? Like
Yep. If you take a negative with you, the symbol will change. If you don't take that negative with you, then it will just stay the same, and the x would stay a negative. Does that make sense? Okay, good question. I don't think you'll see any of those this year, though, okay? I can't remember off the top of my head. Leah. No, that's a plus sign.
Oh, okay.
Yep, that's a plus. Because it's the same operation that's in my simplified expression up above.
Oh,
Okay, everyone do number 2 with the person sitting next to you. Go.
4.
What is my greatest common factor, everyone? 4. Now, for homework, for stuff like that, I'm not expecting you to write GCF as 4. Is that understood?
Yeah.
I just did that for note purposes. Got it? So what do I do with that 4? Good. You're going to divide each term by that 4. So what do I get that I leave inside parentheses, everyone? So k plus 5 should be inside parentheses because 4k divided by 4 is k. 20 divided by 4 is 5. Keep your plus sign the same. And what number goes on the outside of the parentheses? 4. So my answer is 4k plus 5 in parentheses. Questions? Okay, let's skip around. Go to number 6. do you think?
Stays the same.
Okay, read the directions. Right prime. There is not a greatest common, well, there is a greatest common factor. What is the greatest common factor?
1.
But does 1 make a difference? No. And if your answer for the greatest common factor is 1, your answer is prime, because 2 and 9 are both prime. Well, 9's not a prime number, but 2 is a prime number. But they're both prime in the sense that nothing the same can go into both besides 1. Does that make sense? So your answer is just prime. That's all it is. Brady.
So any question that the numbers won't divide in, you just are prime?
Yep. Yes. Yep. All right. One more together. Go to number 12. We're going to do this one together, so just think of the greatest common factor for me. Don't say it out loud. Just be thinking it on your own. Think on your own. On your own. What do you think, guys?
8.
What is it?
8.
It's 8. So do you guys see that there are multiple factors that go into 24 and 40?
Yeah.
You have to pick the largest factor, because if you don't, you factored it, but you didn't fully factor it. Just like when we talk about simplifying fractions, right? It's like you simplified it, but you didn't fully simplify it. Does that make sense, guys? Give me that answer on your paper. Don't say it out loud yet. What should go inside parentheses? 3y minus 5. And what goes outside parentheses?
8.
So my answer is 8 parentheses 3y minus 5. Questions? Yes, ma'am. This 24y divided by 8 is 3. 24 divided by 8 is 3. So it's whatever the division is. So whatever you're dividing by, whatever you're going to get, it's not always going to be a 1y or whatever the case may be. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So think about the y's not there, and what's 24 divided by 8? 24 divided by 8 is 3. And then just add the y to the end.
Mm-hmm.
Good question. Other questions? Yes.
Do you have the homework quiz on this on Monday?
No, because you don't even have your homework over this on Monday yet. Here we go. Number 3. Gavin's not here. Nope. 8. What's number 3?
Do you want to tell me the answer?
Yes, just the answer.
5, and then parentheses, n minus 3.
Excellent. 23. What's 4?
6,
Just r minus 8? 8s. Don't leave off that s. Very, very important. 13. What's 5?
We got 4, and inside parentheses, 3w plus 6.
No.
You could get 4 and then 6 in parentheses, 2w plus 4.
Still no. You're giving me all factors. They're just not the greatest factor. So what's the...
12 inside parentheses, 1w plus 2.
There you go. So everything Braden was giving me is factors. And they totally can be taken out. They just weren't in simplest form, which is why it's not in factored form, because it has to be in simplest all the way down. And you know this by Braden figured it out right away when he looked at the numbers. He saw the numbers inside parentheses. He could still continue to take numbers out. So be really, really careful on that. Does that make sense, guys?
Yeah.
Bennett, question?
On number 4,
Yep.
could you do 6 and then parentheses negative 8?
You could, but I would prefer you leave it in the order that it is written.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Isabel.
If you don't get the greatest common factor, could you keep simplifying?
Yes. Does everyone understand that?
Yeah.
So kind of like when Braden did it, and all of a sudden he was like, oh, that's not right. And then he did it again, and he was like, oh, nope, that's not right. You can keep going to get it. Does that make sense? So totally fine. Just like when we do fractions, right, guys? We can keep simplifying as we go. Same thing. All right, let's keep going. 7. What's 7?
7 is 2, and then inside the parentheses 2n minus 5.
Very good. Number 2, what's number 8?
Oh. 5, and then in parentheses 2b plus 9.
Very good. 16, what's 9?
3 outside the parentheses, and then inside parentheses 2k plus 7.
Perfect. 15, what's 10?
4 outside of parentheses, and then in 4a minus 3b.
Perfect. And last problem, number 18. What'd you get?
Prime.
It is prime. All right, questions on just factoring. All right, now everything we've been learning about this week, plus the distributive property, all culminates together on the very last page of our notes. So we are going to go do that page, but before we do this page, I want you discussing with your partner number 13. Okay, it says, a question on a quiz asks students to factor the expression 32m minus 24. Ryan and Jane's answers are given below. Explain who is correct and why. Talk to your partner. Go. Everyone. Jane or Ryan?
Jane.
Why?
Because she is not the greatest factor.
Good. She used the greatest common factor. She used the GCF. And Ryan just used a factor. Just like fractions, right, guys? It's got to be in simplest form, and the numbers inside parentheses are not in simplest form. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Questions? All right, so now everything that we've been learning this last week and a day, or however long it's been, is all on this one page together. So if we look at question 14 through 21, what do the directions state? Okay, now when we simplified, what was our first step with simplifying expressions? Distribute. So step 1 is to distribute. If there are no parentheses, guys, do you have to distribute? No, so you only distribute if necessary. After you distribute, what's step 2? Combine like terms. And then after you combine like terms, what's the final step going to be? Factor. So I have taught you everything on this page. It's now just all being done at the same time. So let's do number 14. Can I do step number 1?
No.
Nope. So we're going to skip step 1 and go to step 2. So everyone combine like terms for me, please and thank you. And then Lucille, you're going to tell me what you get when you combine like terms. So Lucille, what did you get for combining like terms, sweetheart? Not minus 25. So it is a -2 and a plus 23. So what would that be? Plus 21. Very good. All right, so when you guys combined like terms, you should have hopefully told me 3x plus 21.
Yes. Yeah.
If you can't do that, we're obviously going to miss the next part, right?
Yep.
That's the hard part about expressions is this, you have to do step 1 right in order to do step 2 right, and then in order to do step 3 right. It's not like you're going to eventually figure it out. It's every step has to be right, which is kind of the sucky part about expressions. Step 2 or step 3, what do I do now, everyone?
Factor.
If you have not factored, please factor for me. And then number 20, tell me what you get. Sorry, I couldn't hear you. Say that again. 3 parentheses x plus 7. So that is your answer. Questions on that, you guys? Okay, let's go to number 18. What's the first step I need to do, everyone?
Distribute.
Go ahead, everyone. Distribute. Is 21 Morgan?
Yeah.
And then Morgan, girl, you're up. Tell me what I get when I do the distributive property. Yes, ma'am. 15a minus 10 is correct. Then we carry down the minus 13a and the minus 2. So what do we do now, everyone? Combine like terms. If you haven't done that yet, please combine like terms. And then number 17, you are going to give me the answer to the combining like terms.
2a plus 8.
Not 2a plus 8. It is 2a. But then I have a negative 10 and a negative 2.
Plus 4.
What? They're both negatives.
Minus 8.
What?
Minus 8.
Nope.
Oh,
They're-
plus 10. Minus 10.
Nope. Hey, hold on, girl. Listen. They are both negative numbers. If they are both negatives, do we add or subtract? So what's 10 plus 2?
12.
12. Positive or negative?
Negative.
So my answer should be what?
Oh, 2a plus 12. Minus 12.
Minus 12. There we go. Good job. Does that make sense, guys?
Yep.
I notice if you're getting these wrong, guys, but do your boxing in. You don't need to do colors or anything like that anymore unless you want to, but box them in. Okay, show those steps. Last step is to factor. $14. Tell me what you get when you factor.
2 and then in parentheses a minus 6.
Very nicely done. Every step relies on the step before. That's the hard part about this. Because if you mess one thing up, unfortunately the rest of it's most likely going to be wrong unless you get lucky, right? Okay, let's do one more question together. Number 20. What's my first step, everyone? Distribute. Number 1, tell me what you get when you distribute.
9m minus 6m minus 3m minus 18n.
Very good. 9m minus 6n minus 3m minus 18n. That's a tongue twister. Make sure you have it all written down. Did you guys all remember to take that negative with the 3? Now we need to combine like terms, if you haven't done that yet. Number 22, tell me what I get. 6m minus 24n. Then you can factor. Number 11, tell me what you get.
6 parentheses n minus 4n.
Oopsies. There we go. Very good. Questions? Okay.